do you want to talk about?
I made me. Clams.
What do you want to talk about?
That's like a first date fail, isn't it? Have you seen a
Typical conversation of four guys who have known each other for too long. What do you want to talk about?
Talk about now.
I think we should go straight into the fact that we got to have a great conversation with Sonny, and Barry wasn't there.
I'm
and you love him so much.
So gutted.
We had a filming day with him first of all, which was me and Ebbers.
Yeah, that video is linked down below, either now or very soon to be.
What was it? Pies.
We ate so many pies.
I've been to that pie shop. I know everything about those pies. I'd have been perfect for that.
You answered the question.
We ate all the pies. Yeah,
A lot,
including a 600 quid pie.
What's that
Also,
made of?
Kind of ironic to come to Britain and celebrate the British pie, and then go to kind of like the climax, the most expensive pie, to be a French restaurant where we had pâte en croûte, which is a slice of cold pie. So think pork pie. Like we have pork pies. It's kind of like that. It's like a terrine layered in a pie.
Was it £600 because of what was in it, or because of the size?
Both.
Oh,
Both. So it was like
50 slices worth.
this
it was
long.
like 2.5, 3 feet of pie.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful.
Do you order it in feet?
Incredible.
Could
I'll just have a yard, please.
I have a yard of pie?
The chef who made that incredible pie,
Matthew.
basically we should do some stuff with him because he's
What
awesome.
a privilege, though, to go and shoot with Sonny. Like I'm
It was a tough day.
Such a fanboy. I think he's set the bar for travel food content. Like he's producing a YouTube show that is better quality than TV and travel, and his perspective on food and the way he dives into subject matter that, if I'm honest, we would tiptoe around.
Yeah.
He dives in and finds the answers and gets an opinion from everybody.
And that was the amazing thing, was having seen all of his programs and what he does, and then going to eat pie. It was a completely different experience. Like you see him going into like slums in cities around the world and kind of like eating food from rubbish bins. And I go, no, come and eat jelly deals with us. You'll have a great time.
Although the jelly deals, it's not to my liking.
Jelly deals.
It's a real struggle. So yeah, we did that, and then we went to a good, decent pub just off Savile Row and had shepherd's pie using lamb from Clarkson's Farm.
Oh,
So
Hawkstone lamb.
nice little link there. Then we finished with pâte en croûte.
any questions that you'd like us to ask Sonny?
Favourite place he's travelled? He's travelled the
It's
world.
a lot.
It's a basic question, but for Sonny, it's a really hard question,
Yeah,
I'd
I bet.
imagine.
Yeah.
Good, yeah. I want to know, he's such a good interviewer, and he's so good at letting you know what he thinks without telling you what he thinks. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like a documentary. You watch it, and it's fascinating. He's got such a great style, but you make your own mind up at the end. So I want to know how he does that.
The one thing I want to know is, where does the red bandana come from? Because I didn't ask him, but when we met him, he wasn't wearing it.
Ooh.
Then it was like rolling up.
Oh, then he put it on.
And it's like the chef's apron. It goes on.
It's like Clark Kent.
We'll ask him.
whipping off his
We'll ask
glasses.
him.
What?
Okay, we'll
I
ask
know
that.
the answer.
Don't care, Barry.
We want to hear it from Sonny's own lips.
Yeah, I
In fact,
don't
you can hear
trust
it from
you.
Sonny's own lips in this interview now.
Sonny.
Hey,
Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to the pub.
And welcome to the pub, and welcome to Under the Cloche.
Thank you very much. Happy
Cheers.
to be here. Hold on, you raised your glass. You got to take a sip, right?
yes,
sir.
And
What
eye
happened
contact,
there?
Mike. Come on, do it
Sorry,
properly.
And then you got to talk while he's sipping.
We're
There is
in
an
the
art to
presence
this.
of a pro. Absolutely.
There is an art to this. Before we get going on the real sort of meat in the sandwich of the podcast, the same question we ask everyone. What is your ultimate foodgasm? Because we would love to put it on our specials board. So that moment in time, what is the meal, the moment, the people, the place? What is that moment?
Sure. Yeah. Well, listen, I'm an official food addict. I love food. I once weighed 300 pounds. I'm not sure how many stones that is here.
Lots.
We'll
What do you
the
guys-
conversion and put it on screen?
What do you do for body weight? Is it stones?
Yeah,
All
stones,
kilograms.
Yeah.
Oh, it's adorable. I love it. So that was like 135, 136 kilograms. And I'm still equally addicted. I just work out a lot more now, and sometimes I'll fast here and there. But, I've been fortunate enough to try the most amazing meals from around the world and the worst foods ever. But, I've had Kobe beef in Japan, like right from the cow, teppanyaki style, served right in front of you. I've had, Indian street food right in the streets where they move it from the tawa right to your hand. And even after all of that, my favorite food, my most like indulgent food that I have maybe once a month is a stuffed crust Pizza Hut pizza, pepperoni, extra cheese. And it's the most lame answer. But something happens if you eat if you're addicted to food, you're eating it for like that dopamine release.
Yeah.
If you're eating for pleasure, and there's no more bigger like dopamine spike for me.
It's designed to hit every spot.
It's
I
like
get it.
crafted by scientists or something.
It probably is.
I mean, it's so good. And I know it's such a trashy answer. And look, I come from a trashy background, so that suits me, but that's my go-to. And I eat it rarely just because it makes me feel so bad the next day and instantly put on a few pounds or a couple kilograms or a fraction of a stone just to put it in.
Thanks for the conversion.
Yes.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
Right. So that's it.
Wow. That's I love it. I
It's
love
the
that.
second stuffed crust pizza we've had on the podcast. I love that it just hits that nostalgia, hits the spot for the people. It is a moment.
But that's the beauty of food. It's so subjective, and sometimes you love what you love because you love it, and you don't have to justify it. I mean, instantly we've gone into the travel, the amazing experiences that you have, your channel, the YouTube channel. I mean, it's absolutely
Groundbreaking.
Yeah, it's phenomenal in how well it's done. We've been big fans for a while. I'm going to stop brown-nosing you for 1 second to ask, was this all part of a plan? Take us back to your formative years, the beginning of the channel. How did this all start?
Okay, the short version of the story is back when I lived in Minnesota, I worked at a job I worked at every terrible type of job you can imagine, from moving large appliances, serving at restaurants, and I worked at a home for people, like an assisted living facility where I had to help guys, go to the bathroom and stuff like that. And so I didn't have cable in my apartment, but I would sleep over there twice a week at their house in case somebody had a problem. I'd sleep on the couch. And on TV, on the Travel Channel, I'd watch back-to-back Andrew Zimmern and Bourdain's shows, Bizarre Foods and No Reservations. And both of those shows inspired me to move to Asia in the first place. And I never thought necessarily that I'd make a show like theirs, but it was still very inspiring at that time. And so eventually, a few years later, I moved to Korea. So this was my first foray into living abroad and living in a new country and living in Asia. So when I moved to Korea, I started to get into filmmaking. I was into filmmaking in high school, but it's something I didn't go to university for. And so it took a few years to get proficient and to get good at it. And by the time I got good enough to make money from it and work for clients and make music videos, I wanted to make my own content. And so one of the things that was always interesting to me was food. And especially, initially my video was like international food in Korea, like burgers and quesadillas and nachos and stuff like that. And I'm like, right, there's no audience for this. There's no audience for like, hey, what's the American food scene like in Korea? So I thought, I'm going to just and I have a video talking about it that's still up. I'm like, I'm just going to copy what Andrew Zimmern did in Bizarre Foods because I love that concept and see what happens. But really, the crux of our channel is trying to find the most unique food from around the world. But for me, the reason to do it is because the question of why always comes along with these foods. Whenever you see somebody eating something like stinky tofu in Taiwan or a cobra snake heart that's still beating in a glass of vodka in Vietnam, naturally the question is,
Why?
why are you doing that?
Yeah.
What's going on, buddy? When you see somebody eating buffalo placenta in Thailand, you want to say, hey,
How did this come to be?
could
so
you explain
true.
it to me? And so there's a natural curiosity that goes along with it. And so that's where the notion of making these types of videos came. But I didn't ever expect it to turn into this. I didn't know what it could turn into. In the beginning, I had such an incorrect notion of YouTube. I remember thinking, like, I'm never going to put advertisements on my videos. I don't want anything to get between the viewer and my videos.
We've been through that.
Yeah.
It took years to switch on
And then you have
mid-rolls.
to pay for life.
Yeah, right. After 8 years, I moved from Korea to Vietnam after I'd started the channel, but I mean, I wasn't making any money. But I got this small opportunity in Vietnam to work for a company that was doing food tours. And so I would make videos for them once a week. I could make videos for myself. They paid me $1,000 a month, and they gave me a room and they gave me a camera guy. And so these are the tools I had to work with in the beginning. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to somehow turn this into a channel. I don't know how, but I know that Vietnam has a lot of interesting food. It's very affordable because I had some money saved up, like maybe 10 to 15 grand. And I was very close to a lot of other inexpensive countries, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Philippines.
A huge culture of street food where it is affordable.
Yeah, street food is interesting just because it's not like you're just hidden away in secluded kitchens. It's just there's something frenetic about it, and it's very visual, and people love watching videos about street food
So true,
and
yeah.
about these kind of strange, exotic, bizarre foods that people eat that are so normal to one culture and so bizarre to another culture. And so naturally, it took a couple years to make any money off of it or to make a profit. And there were certainly a lot of moments where I thought, this is not going to work out at all. But I
Again,
kept going.
We've been there.
Yeah. But, I kind of burned the boats. When I moved to Vietnam, it's like, what else was I going to do? I could just get other work doing videography, but I was in Vietnam. I'm not going to find like good, well-paid gigs there. Not necessarily. And so I just kept going, and eventually it started to work, and I started to build my team, and maybe every few months we would add another team member. Now we're up to about 20 people on our team. We have maybe something like 10 editors, 6 producers, a couple of shooters that come with me when we're shooting, and now it's an amazing
It's a
amazing
production
job.
unit, yeah.
I've got a two-part question. Sorry, Ebbers, I've just cut across you again. But that moment, was there a specific moment or event when you were in Minnesota that made you go, I can't do this anymore, I'm off to Korea? And then the second part of my question is, was there also a moment when you got an insight into, hey, this is starting to work?
This could be a thing.
This could be a thing, and what that moment was. So sorry, a very confusing two-parter question.
Yeah, wow.
2 trigger points. We want
Let's
both
go.
of them.
2 trigger points.
One at a time. All right. So university was never my thing. I failed. What's interesting is I would fail at university, and then I was so good at getting in for another year because they were like, well, you're going to have to like appeal, they put me on probation or something, and you have to write a letter. You're like, oh, I couldn't focus because I broke up with my girlfriend, or you just write this
Mitigating
note,
circumstances.
driving my beat up Honda or Chrysler LeBaron for 3 hours down to Rochester from St. Cloud, talk to a counselor there, and they're like, all right, fine, you could do one more semester, and you're like, no sweat, fail that too. And it's like, why didn't I put that same effort into actually going to classes and stuff? And so it's just not the environment I belonged in. And so I failed out of Rochester Community College, and then St. Cloud State University, and then St. Cloud Technical College. After that, I tried to get a job in radio. And so that was something like that more suited me, being just
Creative.
but in the field immediately. I didn't have to like
Thrown
take a
into the
biology class to learn
thrown
about
into the deep
radio.
end.
You
Yeah.
just go do radio. And so that was much more appealing to me. I tried to get one job. I was like shaking and nervous for this interview, and thank God they didn't select me, but I didn't get it. And I was just at this point, like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't have a degree. I'm clearly not going to make it in a university. Radio's probably not going to work out either. And I just wanted to go somewhere. While I was still young, I was 24 at the time, 23, 24. I wanted to move abroad and get the experience of being somewhere else in the world, immersed in another culture, before I finally found my footing in whatever my future career would be. Which, if it wasn't YouTube now, it would be production. So, my background is in video production and directing, and then that's translated well to what I'm doing now. Because what I used to, I used to build a team to do a video commercial or a music video or a TV commercial, and now I'm assembling similarly a team, but just to make this one very specific thing, which is food videos.
But you have a very specific vision and concept behind the subject matter that you're exploring, and then have all of these people to help you realize that vision on screen.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's evolved over time. And look, I couldn't do this without my team, and my team has had tremendous input too. And, the culture of the Best Ever Food Review Show team is and should be that the best idea should win. And anybody in my team or organization should be able to question anybody about the workflow and what we're doing. And they should never get an answer like, because that's how we do it. It should always be, this is the most efficient or optimized way of doing it because of this. And that's the kind of culture I try to have in my team, at least.
I think what's amazing is, and there's so many sort of societal pressures around the obvious, which is education. And it's got to be a university or a college, and everyone goes down that route. But there are so many other arguably for some better ways of learning.
Definitely.
And what we all do is publish, which means the moment you've published something, it's old news and you've got to find something else to publish. So every day is a school day, and every day is like, it's the university of life. And I feel like you unlock more of those opportunities around the world than ever before. But every day you're having to learn, and yet it's not the education system. And I feel it's so many people get pressured into, it's got to be school, it's got to be a qualification, it's got to be a piece of paper with a certificate. But actually, we're all learning every single day, and that can make us all bigger and better.
I think that concept of why as well, why, not just the food, but why is this performing in a certain way? Why are people interested in this? And building upon that as well. I think asking the question why is a key part of that, exactly what you've mentioned.
I think I was part of the end of a generation where everyone was told you have to go to university.
Yeah, we're the same.
Or
We're
you're
pretty
a
much the
fucking
same.
loser.
Yeah, same age. Yeah.
And, it's that idea has changed a lot now already. And there's people like Gary Vee and others who espouse ideas like, just get out there, get reps, practice. Even with my own kids, I think I would be more apt to encourage them to get into creative work, but also business. I mean, people, it always amazes me. There's certain like cultures and people who think like the best jobs you can get are to be a doctor or a lawyer. But, the people who are the most successful financially are people who own their own businesses. And what we do, you and I both, is not just creative, but we're running a business. And a big part of that is the creative element. But there's just so much more than that to budgeting and negotiating, writing contracts, all that is involved. I'm not saying people shouldn't go to university, but I do think if it's for communications or video or marketing, I would say, why not take a year off and go find a marketing firm or someplace where you can work for free for a year if you can. And people will say that's preposterous. Why would I work for free when I could go to school and pay $50,000? It's like, right. Well, so don't pay anything, and maybe don't get anything, and maybe still get a loan or live with your parents or do what you have to do. But see what you could learn in that year, and see if that sets you on a good trajectory. And if after a year, you're not quite where you want to be, then maybe try university after that.
Yeah.
If you want to be a doctor, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and thank goodness some people do, because we need doctors too, but it's not the only route, and I think that's the biggest takeout. I find that we're both in a similar field of food, and I think we're super lucky because I once heard an analogy about music and sort of saying eventually we're going to run out of music, and yet that is impossible, and yet you're only working with, broadly speaking, 8 musical notes. And in food, if you're working with thousands of ingredients and combinations of that, we're never going to run out of finding new food stories to tell.
Right.
But I feel like you find this wonderful way of unlocking the people behind the food as being the most interesting part. I wonder if you could just maybe share some of your favorite moments over the last decade that shine a light on some of those fascinating sort of stories. What are like your top 3 maybe?
If you're going to do what we do, you need to have stories and find the stories and not just the food. And sometimes the foods are interesting enough where the story is kind of intrinsic to the food. But, recently, just here in London, we did a whole video about curry. So this is like this huge popular food. Indian food, super popular in London. It has been for a long time. And we had 3 locations. One was cheaper, one's mid-price, one is more expensive. But they all had a separate but still interesting story. So the story isn't how to make a lamb curry. And that is some of the food videos you see just at their core, especially on shorter platforms like Instagram or TikTok. It might just be, here's the recipe.
Recipe led, yeah.
But it's hard to distinguish yourself because a lot of people are just making pretty looking, like really good looking recipe videos. And so, we went to the Indian YMCA, and there's a great story there. And they're talking about how they're subsidizing the hostels there, and then they provide breakfast and dinner. They show us the food. It's super affordable. It's delicious. But now we have a story to go along with how it's so affordable. Then we go to a mid-price location. They're talking about chicken tikka masala. We find out, this is my first time trying this British Indian food.
Yeah.
And then hearing the story behind it, but also some of the controversy. And one of these like Pakistani owners talking about, well, we caved in and eventually put it on the menu, but we didn't want to at first. And then we went to a very expensive place where they said they were going to make 1,000-pound curry. And then the story there is just, is that possible? Is is Indian food meant to be high end? How do people feel about that? Because it's usually this very affordable, accessible, like street food. I know I shouldn't say usually, but that's kind of what people know. Of course,
It's the assumption, yeah.
There's the royal food that people ate in the past too. But so those are three really different stories that are connected directly to the food that I think are really engaging and interesting. And so I think that part is really integral to making a compelling video, is getting to the story, but finding the balance of context and action. And so this is something Mr. Beast talks about all the time, which is for him in the past, it was more just action, action, action. Don't let it get too boring. But if you give too much context, for example, we did a video about porcupines in Vietnam, porcupine farms. But if you start your video with a 1 minute chunk of voiceover on how porcupines are raised, it's going to get boring.
Yep.
So I kind of say we need to drip feed context or information throughout the video so that people are getting doses of context so they know what to walk away with, and then they're getting action too, which is stimulating to them. But if you have too much stimulation, then it's not deep. You don't walk away with anything. That's like a Logan Paul vlog from 8 years ago or whatever. And so, gosh, as far as interesting food stories around the world, okay, here are some. We went to the Faroe Islands. The first European country we ever shot in was Faroe Islands, which is, I guess, I don't know, they say it's owned by Denmark, but
there's a lot of that.
the phrasing of that just sounds weird. Like we own that country.
Yeah.
Or so is it a country, a nation? I don't know. Whaling still exists there. So people are hunting the pilot whales, and every documentary that goes there is only talking about the sad part about whales dying. And they're not talking to the locals about this tradition, how far this goes back, and like how sustainable it really is. So we didn't want to take the approach of just eating whale, but we wanted to get into both sides of it, the side that people usually present about whale hunting, getting the locals' point of view, and then I actually try whale by the end of the video. Recently in Ghana, so that's a great story.
Yeah.
That's captivating. That to me, that's super interesting. In Ghana recently, we shot a bushmeat market. And bushmeat is this thing that most people would assume, okay, people eating bushmeat unequivocally, that's bad, right? That should be an easy one, bad. But I was like, what if we went there and got the local perspective instead of just the more Western perspective, which is usually informed by, I don't know, biologists who have a pretty biased point of view, no offense.
And it's always binary. It's yes or no, black or white, and there's
Right.
no kind of middle ground.
So it turns out the story, it's complicated. There are foods that they've hunted for many, many years, and they're not endangered. There's an animal called a grass cutter. It's like a giant rodent. There's certain types of antelope. And so for that seems to make sense that they would hunt that and eat that. And then there's it's complicated part, or maybe the bad part, which is there are like pangolins there. And so we went to a bushmeat market where we found a pangolin. Now that's actually the most illegally traded hunted animal in the world. And I don't know why this guy brought it out to show it to us. I mean,
He saw the cameras and thought, this is my chance.
We didn't talk about this.
No, all his friends were like, what are you doing? I think it was like an ego thing. He's like, hey, check this out. We got a freaking pangolin, dude. And so speaking of stories, yeah, we ate bushmeat. We tried some of the food there, but there's a bigger, compelling story around this whole notion of bushmeat. We ended up buying the pangolin for $150. We brought it to a zoo in Kumasi City in Ghana, and we're like, is there anything you can do with this? Because it's probably going to die pretty soon. I looked up its diet. It's not like crackers or biscuits. It's just insects. They let it go in the zoo there, in the forest of the zoo. It crawled into the grass, and that's a good story.
Wow.
And so I want people to be able to watch a video like that and consider both sides and then decide for themselves what is their new opinion on bushmeat. So those are just a couple examples.
Great examples.
I was going to actually ask, the way that I view your content when I'm watching it is it's almost documentary style in terms of here are all the sides and perspectives of the subject matter. You give your perspective as well and your opinion, but actually it's delivered in a way that as a viewer you make up your own mind, and it's not persuasive, it's not pushing you in a particular direction. Is that something that you are super mindful of? Because it sounds like that's how you like to approach it.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what I think. And it's funny because the show is called Best Ever Food Review Show. I'm not a critic. I'm not really a food reviewer. It's a random assortment of words that came out of my mouth on the very first episode when I was reviewing a grilled cheese.
Slight segue.
yeah.
We were doing some research. You started your channel the same year we did, 2010, but it took you 5 years to publish your first video. What were you doing?
So you know what? I had a bunch of videos on YouTube that were not related to food. So I would make little comedy videos and stuff that was kind of like BuzzFeed-ish, or I made a friend of mine did this performance art called You Need to Get Off Facebook, where he had all these cards and he would, they all had messages written on them, and he would drop a card and they all had this kind of funny story or his opinion that he laid out about Facebook at the time. And that got 4 million views. And this is like in, I don't know, 2013, something like that. So when I started, I had a random like 6,000 subscribers from other videos I had put up, music videos and stuff too. And then eventually, you know, you get 20 videos into a new topic and you're like, I should probably unlist these random music videos.
This is
stuff.
me now. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
so,
on a journey.
I've got a lane, yeah.
Yeah. So I had some random videos up there, but started the food stuff in, I think, end of 2015, beginning of 2016.
And at risk of breaking the internet, your actual name isn't Sonny.
Yeah.
So Sunnyside is your pseudonym. What was the mentality behind creating that stage name? Was it in order to sort of be able to have these perhaps more controversial subject matters, or was it just simply like an industry standard? Hey, I'm going to.
I appreciate that you guys think I have so much forethought and strategy and calculation. It's none of that. No, here's what it was. I was living in Korea illegally. I was there as a tourist teaching, which is not legal because, rewinding a little bit, no degree. Yep. So I'm teaching English to kids with no degree. Although I did, I interned in radio, so there is that. And so I had to leave the country every 90 days. And I did this for 8 years. It was very anxiety inducing, especially after a few years. You're accumulating stamps in your passport. You're coming back into the country. They're like, for real.
Yeah.
What are you doing
again?
here? Yeah.
We know each other by name.
Right.
Yeah. It's the guy with the bandana again.
That would be great. People think I actually wear this out just in my normal life. Like, I'm super desperate for attention and validation. So my thinking was, well, if they look up my real name, they're going to find me on Facebook and then see pictures of my life in Korea, which it might show a picture of me teaching or something like that. So I'm not going to have my real name on the internet, or at least on Facebook or social media, if I can avoid it. So at that time, my nickname's always been Sonny since 9th grade football. And so I made a fake production company like we all do in the beginning called Sunnyside Films. And so I tried to change my real name to Sunnyside Films. Of course, Facebook was like, Films is not a name. A last name. Yeah. Facebook was like, you can do Sunnyside, but not Sunnyside Films. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, then everybody in my community in Korea started calling me Sunnyside because that's what my name was on Facebook. So I became Sunnyside.
Interesting.
And I just rolled with it. That's it.
I mean, we touched upon the bandana. We didn't want to make a huge thing of it, but where did it come from? Is it something that you do to stand out, or
it's
is it
a religious
actually functional?
thing.
Oh, really?
No.
I'm so gullible.
Sorry.
Hook, line, and sinker on that one.
There's going to be just no mystique left to me after this interview. Like, wow, all these things, I thought there was something more to it. It's like, no, not at all. Yeah, so head sweat, also known as flop sweat. Yeah, I just would sweat a lot. And especially in summer or in Southeast Asia, I didn't.
Humidity is.
There's only so many good options if you're working out or if you're sweaty and you need to stop the sweat from getting in your eyes. I mean, what would you use? You could wear like a baseball cap.
It doesn't work.
There's sweatbands for
we're
basketball
very sweaty
players.
individuals.
Yeah.
The sweatbands for basketball players, I think, look more nerdy than this. And so this is what I genuinely did. And so it was just in my videos. Early on, I took steps to like take it off in some videos if it wasn't that hot. I'm like, I don't need it. It's like, I'm not a douchebag at all. And, but then this is how judgmental I am of myself. I'm like, I assume other people are thinking I'm a douchebag right now for wearing the bandana. But then it just became a branding thing and people would recognize me because of it. And I was like, you know what? Don't fight it. So
No.
even when we went to shoot in Japan, when it was like 10 degrees or whatever, I was like, I don't really need a bandana right now. It's pretty hot, pretty cold.
Yep.
Kept it on anyways.
But lean into it.
Yeah. So now it's part of the look.
I love it. I think it's great. Yeah, and it's exactly that, isn't it? Because it's interesting how especially when working on a platform like YouTube, you get known as, oh, that's the bandana guy. And then a few more of those videos pop up, and then they watch more, and then they know you as Sonny, and then they kind of take that deeper connection and interest into the content. Being able to stand out in that way is so important, especially amongst, it's so saturated out there. It's
I have
so tough.
I have a pretty generic white guy look. And so
What? Hang on. Look at who you're talking
that's
to.
a good point. That's a good point.
British generic white
The
guys.
chef's jacket was this slight saving grace.
We
and
can
it's-
get more beige right now.
So true. So yeah, it has helped to stand out a bit. And then, it's like Superman and Clark Kent. Like when he takes off the glasses, take off the bandana, and then suddenly people are like, are you that?
No, it can't
No,
be.
it can't be him.
Wait. Never mind. I'm so sorry.
So everything we do on YouTube, the you part of YouTube is the community and the people watching, and we do an awful lot of stuff that is shaped by all of the comments that happen under our videos, and so many of our best sort of format ideas, they've helped to shape and steer and kind of direct. How much do you pay attention to the comments underneath your videos, especially with some of the more controversial topics or challenging topics? They can be quite polarizing at times, but how do you kind of deal with that interaction?
Yeah. So I don't think people being upset about a video is a good indicator for whether I should adjust or change the content. Probably the best metric is just viewership. Are people viewing the video? I think that's more important than whether or not the video upset people. And then, people get upset about different things they witness or different animals being slaughtered. And we try to show as much as we can because it's real life. This is real life villages, people, scenarios that we're showing. So we're trying to show a culture, people in a village in a real setting, and not just be like, all right, the lamb is alive and now it's cut up into pieces, and just like skip everything in between. So people get upset about that part. Maybe certain types of animals being slaughtered or eaten or killed that people don't like. I just don't really factor any of that in. I get it.
It's part of the conversation.
But, sometimes you do, especially if you do a topic that doesn't do well, or video or country that doesn't do well, it's not like I completely disregard comments. I think you can find good, useful feedback in there, and use it to, make slight adjustments to what you're doing as you move forward.
If anything, something that we've experienced is people saying, oh, it would have been really interesting actually if you'd have gone into more detail on this particular area. Whereas perhaps we kind of self-edited as we were going, thinking perhaps we shouldn't dwell too long on this subject. Whereas actually a lot of the comments are giving you more freedom to go more in depth, which is fascinating.
And sometimes you learn too. Like, I didn't go to culinary school. And my culinary school was just watching Food Network when I was younger, and we do as good a research as like we can. But even on my second channel, it's a little bit more freewheeling. I'm not researching everything I'm saying. And so one time, I think I was eating cartilage, something like that, in Singapore, and I was like, "Oh, it's so full of fat," because it just felt like it was because it was gelatinous. And then someone's like, "Oh, that's like pure protein," which I didn't know, and I thought that that's actually great to know. So people often leave interesting and useful nuggets in the comments like that, and then I can give and deliver better information in future videos.
We're forever being corrected, aren't we?
Especially with
audience,
our pronunciation, which we are terrible
Pronunciation,
at. Language is a real challenge.
Our fifth or maybe sixth member is our audience, who have far more knowledge than we do. I had a question about how you identify your next videos.
Sorry.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up as well. But how do you go about researching, identifying new subjects for videos? Because you've done so much. How do you keep it fresh, and how do you find the new places?
Yeah, well, okay. So one, I have to give big credit to our producing team. So right now we have 5 producers, and with London, I knew I wanted to do kind of a cheap versus expensive type of topic, and so sometimes I give them some kind of ground rules to work with, and then they'll go from there. with Ghana, I gave them a couple of ideas, but they really mainly came up with the ideas themselves for what our tour or trip would look like in Ghana. So we have amazing producers who do deep research. First, they do deep research themselves. They contact local fixers, which are like producers who live in the country. They can do further research or verify or confirm things that can or cannot be done within the country. But I also love, like, my buddy Andrew asked me a while ago, like, aren't you afraid you'll run out of content? I was like, first of all, there's like 195 countries. You do all the countries, that takes 15, 20 years. And then you do all the countries again. Because something changed.
It would have moved on, yeah.
And my favorite thing is coming up with different like video structures or formats, because one of the best approaches to have with YouTube, I think, is to have unique framing for videos so people can look at the video in a different and unique way. Take something like the $100 challenge. Okay, today before this, I went to Borough Market. I ate about 5,000 calories of British food just like 10 minutes from here. So that is a $100 street food challenge in London. This is an amazing, deep concept, but it's a lot better than best British food on the street or something like that. And that superlative content, I think, doesn't do that well, the best whatever. And I think it's just because it's overdone. And most people, people travel. I always watch people's travel vlogs when they go to Vietnam because I live there. And they'll be like, oh, best street food in Vietnam. It's like, you don't know. And
that's my pet hate when people go, oh, where do you want to go? Oh, I've done Copenhagen. Because you spent a weekend there. Like,
right.
I've done Copenhagen. Like,
and then their videos like where to go in Copenhagen.
Yeah, the 5 places that I happened to go to are going to make my list. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so good framing is like, okay, $100 challenge. So we've created some anticipation, a challenge, some intrigue or curiosity.
Within, yeah.
And they're like, okay, so can he actually spend that much? Is it possible? During the video, they're maybe engaged in looking at how much all the foods cost. They're evaluating, would that be worth it to them? Here, it's insanely expensive. I got fish and chips and calamari for 29 pounds. But in India or Malaysia, I wouldn't be able to spend $10 or 10 pounds on food for a whole day. So that's framing. And so that would be one type of video. But man, I have the whole world at my fingertips right now. During the pandemic, I was stuck in Vietnam for over a year. And by stuck, I mean I could have left, but then I couldn't have come back. And so me and my whole team were there. Most of the world was shut down. Vietnam was still pretty open. We could travel mostly where we wanted to. Didn't have to wear masks because the plague had not entered the country yet. We made 100 videos in a row in Vietnam. So we came up with some concepts. And we had concepts ranging from, like, we did factory foods. We did an 8 video series on factories. We went to a ramen factory, a sausage factory, a chili sauce factory. So that became a series. We did a series on fine dining where we went from sourcing the food to the final product.
Oh, nice.
So we went to a caviar farm. We went to an oyster farm. And again, that's a great concept because it's not just like the best meal I had in Saigon. It's like, no, this is the fine dining from exactly where it starts to where it ends at the restaurant. And the series I'm most proud of, because it's so bizarre, is this, I don't even know what you'd call it, an animal parts series where me and my buddy Calvin would eat an animal part for 24 hours, let's say. And that 24-hour thing was a strong theme at the time, but it was like eating Disney food for 24 hours. Our first video, eating animal testicles for 24 hours. And so we had chicken, we had goat hot pot with testicles.
Do you have a favorite testicle?
Oh my! You know what? No, this is a great question. No, valid question.
Chefy, it's important.
Chefy.
So, Hong Kong, they make some great beef testicles. They're big. I think they braise them for a long time. They got a great chew to them,
like
a nice texture, a good bounce. Mm-hmm.
What was the accompanying flavors?
We ate it in some kind of a. Well, when I had those same testicles in Vietnam, they put it in a hot pot, savory, probably using Chinese 5-spice, something like that. And so we did this whole series where it's like, okay, 4 different types of brain dishes, feet dishes, skin dishes. And so I just think the limitation, at least within this category of videos, I just tell myself, if I cannot think of more video topics, that's my fault.
Yep.
It's not because there's a lack of foods or ideas. It's just because I've not been creative enough to come up with more topics that will be interesting to people.
And having those parameters is really helpful. I think if someone said to you, well, said to me, like, give me 10 recipes, I'd really struggle to give you 10 recipes. But if you said, give me 10 pork-based recipes perfect for a barbecue in the summer, I could do it. Because the specifics means you can be more creative within those parameters. And if you've done 100 videos in Vietnam, well, you've got, like you say, 195 other countries that you can tackle as well.
Yeah.
This is your first time in the UK. How have you found it? I can only apologise for our weather. It's been cold and wet and grey and miserable, but how have you found the food?
Sonny's drinking beer, coffee, and Red Bull at the same time.
This is the end of a really long stint, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to get a buzz, but then I'm like, oh, right, I can't think as well right now. So I need some Red Bull. So how have I found the British food?
Be honest.
This is tough.
Uh-oh.
Do you have a pretty big British audience?
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. It's
A
all right.
global
We've heard it
audience.
all
Okay.
before.
I don't want to offend anybody. Is that
You
a good
never
way
do.
to start?
You never do. You always tiptoe around and provide
That's
very,
right.
very sort of
Nuance.
nuanced conversation.
That's
and
what I'm
I
good at.
appreciate that.
So I've found, I didn't really exactly know what British food was. So I've learned a lot more about what it entails since being here. I've had some stuff in the past, like before coming here, I did have black pudding and I had fish and chips. I think everyone's had fish and chips. And, in Las Vegas, I had
Gordon
beef-
Ramsay's fish and chips, right?
Yeah. And his beef Wellington,
Oh, yeah.
also known as a welly.
A welly, yeah.
Yeah.
Beef welly. Yeah.
So that was nice. So here it's been nice to get a more clear idea of what British food is, but also just to try the different variations of it. So getting like pie and mash, or is it mash and pie?
Pie and mash.
Pie and mash.
Getting pie and mash, which I enjoyed. Oh, I had that with you.
Yeah. I mean, we just, you filmed so much, you can't remember where we were and what we were. That was on St. George's Day as well. So we were in a pie and mash shop in the East End of London, had pie mash, slapped on a plate, the
You
liquor,
couldn't have had a more
and jelly deals.
British experience, probably. Yeah.
The jelly deal.
No.
It's a living museum, that place. It's history, it's tradition, it's a community of people who love it. It's not the best.
But then I've also gotten, certain British foods that have just been elevated to their highest potential. I had this beautiful, it was Bob Ricard in the city of London. And
Press for champagne. That place?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
You press a button to get champagne. And so they made a beef Wellington there. I think it was 98 pounds. And it just was perfection. And the chef was on point and super strict and kind of ripped. So I was like, do you work out a lot? He's like, my team can only work here if they work out. If they finish their shift and they're the type that just want to go get beers, you can't work with me. So I was like,
nice.
this guy brings that intensity
Interesting.
to the food.
Yeah.
And so that was an amazing experience. So I've just had this huge variety of the very kind of humble, common variations of British food to like just the top of the top. So it's been super fun trying everything.
It is definitely like the British cuisine. It's got a bad reputation worldwide, but it's because it's mainly born out of whatever we can grow within this climate and the very basics. So making the most of the basics, and that seems to have stuck over the centuries past. What is amazing about London is that it's the global
The
food
multicultural
and
food scene.
the food from elsewhere that actually makes this city amazing for food, in my
Right.
opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
We walked past Umu the other day when we were filming, and Jamie said that's the best place I've ever had Wagyu beef, like the best Wagyu beef on the planet. And you said, have you never been to Japan? And we're like, well, actually, we have been to Japan, and still the best Wagyu beef we had was in that, granted, 2 Michelin star restaurant in London. So we do other cuisines really well, but
They do them really well
probably
here.
should fly a flag more for our British food sometimes.
Look, everyone should take pride in their food. And no matter what, for me, no matter where I go, it's still fun to try something new and to try what, the local people are actually eating and the traditional food that this country came up on. That being said, British food has this reputation for potentially being bland, not having a lot of spices, not being spicy. So I have a question
Garlic
for you
is a
guys.
spice.
Yeah,
And no one's been able to answer this yet.
This is great.
One of the big reasons Britain colonized India, which at the time was probably known as Hindustan, was for the spices. So they went there, they got the spices.
Where are they?
What do they do with the spices?
We put them in sweet pies. They're like right at the very start, like a minced meat. So at Christmas we have a mince pie and all of the spices, but it was more the sweet spices, the cinnamon, the mace, the cloves. Those we use quite a lot. But yeah, the actual
Pretty bland
spices.
now I think about it.
Turmeric,
it's
chili
a celebration.
powder,
I think
cardamom.
curry is still one of our national dishes, but it's it's a very much an anglicised version of the actual delicious food you can find all over India, and it's so regional. As we know with Italian food and Indian food, you only have to travel 100 miles and the food changes.
Right.
Whereas we've just kind of got a version of it here. Same with Chinese food. We love Chinese food here in the UK, but it is not like the food in China.
Right.
And it's our own kind of version of,
Yeah.
for
Fair.
better or for worse, usually the latter.
Yeah, same as US.
You mentioned about the chef having his brigade and being quite militant in terms of exercise. How do you get through weeks and weeks and weeks on the road of really intense filming, eating a whole bunch? How do you look after your own mind, well-being, body?
Sure.
Because you are consuming huge amounts of calories some days.
Some days, yeah. Unless we're doing a bushmeat episode, then just a few bites. Yeah, not a lot. My routine, it's pretty simple and probably what you would expect, but we are usually shooting 10 to 12 hours a day. And then when I get back to the hotel, we usually try to book a hotel that has a gym. I'll go work out and try to skip breakfast, skip dinner, or maybe just have a couple of eggs, something like that. Then I work with my team or do voiceover, do whatever I need to do until bedtime, and then try to get 8 hours of sleep every day. And that's about it. And so this is kind of interesting. Most people wouldn't expect this, but I actually, it kind of drives my wife crazy, but I lose weight during production so that I can gain weight when I'm not on production.
Great.
Because look, I love food and I love making this show, but you guys know this. There's a phenomenon. Even if you're eating your favorite food, but on camera and you're talking, you can't
don't enjoy
deeply
it as much.
enjoy it.
Yeah, it's true.
Like the ideal scenario is like maybe you have some wine, a beer, you have a great TV show in front of you, you have your food, and you're just really like savoring all this stimulation at one time. That's my ideal
You're
scenario.
not thinking, I've got to say something relatively intelligent about this, which for me is really difficult.
Yeah.
Relativity's fine though.
Relativity.
No, if I even attempt to react to the food and it's just me and my wife, she's like, "Hey, shh." What are you
In
doing?
the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Finger to the lips. Enough.
Not now.
Enough.
Not now.
So
Have
that's
a day
it.
off.
So that's it. So maybe we've been on production for the last 3 weeks. So maybe I've dropped like maybe 2 kilograms, like 4 pounds, something like that. But I'll put it back on because we're going to Italy in a couple days.
On vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to drink wine and eat pizza.
So what do you eat when you're not filming for enjoyment? What's the type of things that you eat when the cameras aren't rolling?
Pizza Hut pizza.
Well,
Yeah, that's one of them, absolutely.
It depends on where we are, but usually if I'm not shooting, I'm at home in Vietnam. And so we're spoiled for choice in where we live in Vietnam. And a lot of people think, oh, Vietnamese food, that's good. And it's like, no, we have like everything. And if you compare even where I live in Vietnam to where I lived in Minnesota, there's way more options in Vietnam. So right near where we live, there's a sushi place, there's an Australian barbecue, there's a French burger place that makes gourmet burgers, there's Mexican food, there's just about everything you can imagine. We even have a little British place. The other great thing is delivery is so inexpensive in Vietnam that we are rarely cooking. When we're in Minnesota, we cook like every night. When we're in Vietnam, we're never cooking. And so just to put it in perspective, you can get a banh mi, a Vietnamese sandwich, for roughly $1.50. And the delivery fee is $1.
one.
So for, let's say, $2.50 all in, you've got a sandwich delivered to your door in 15 minutes.
That's because the population of scooters is higher than the population, right?
Right, exactly. No, there's a load of drivers everywhere, and then just everybody, even if they're just a simple street side stall, everybody is on. So instead of Uber Eats or something, it's called Grab. Everyone's on Grab food, and they're all delivering. So I love it. It'll be somebody who just has the most simple stall you could imagine.
They do one thing and they do it really, really, really freaking well.
But they have the app. They've figured out how to put the restaurant on the app and take simple pictures of all the foods and price it out, and people order from them. And it just doubles their output.
Wow.
And is that also a factor of, in Vietnam, small accommodations and lack of kitchens? Because, for example, in places like Tokyo and even New York, space is at a premium, and often it's the kitchen that's the one that's kind of shrunk right down. Whereas in the UK, we all have hobs and ovens, and it's all part of our midweek sort of culture is cooking in. Yes, we do takeaways as well, but is that different in Vietnam? Is it more of a takeout culture because of lack of kitchen, or just
It's both, but I would say
first?
the big difference, we went to a Vietnamese restaurant here the other day. The big difference here is if you go to a Vietnamese place here, they're going to try to do like the 15 greatest hits of Vietnam. What's really special about Vietnamese food in Vietnam is that each place does one thing, more or less. So if there's a place that does pho, they just do pho. And so they have a noodle provider who makes fresh pho noodles every day. They're getting up early at 3 a.m. to make the broth every single morning. And every component of that dish is completely dialed in. Where if you go to a place here, or especially in the US, it's, first of all, they won't even get the fresh noodles. It's going to have to be the dry noodles, which is a different experience. And so whether it's a banh mi shop with the sandwiches, noodles, whatever you can think of, most of it is coming from a place where that's all they specialize in. And so you don't need necessarily as big of a kitchen or as big of a team if you're just cranking out the same dish over and over and over. And they also really perfect it.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we experienced when we went to Japan, was just this amazing obsession with, I'm going to do this one thing, but I'm going to master it.
Yeah.
And you end up...
huge respect for food and...
Yeah, I know this is probably an ignorant thing to say, but you end up going to multiple places and you don't eat a bad meal because everyone's got the same perspective. I'm going to master this, I'm going to master it. And it's just astounding. It leads me on to a question I had in terms of kind of across your journey, what you've learned and the experiences you've had. What's been the real key takeout for you, having made that big jump in Minnesota to move to Korea and then Vietnam? What's been the most resounding thing that stood out to you?
I guess just in that regard, it's never going to be as scary as you think it's going to be. And I think the anxiety of anticipation that people create is the worst part, that generates the most fear for people before they go do something, even as simple as traveling to Asia. Some people, especially the US is a bit further from Asia, and we have a bit less vacation, I think, than you guys. Yeah. And people travel, but they either travel within the US or maybe to Mexico, something like that. They make it this big thing in their head. They could live in a place like Chicago and be like, oh, Saigon, that sounds dangerous. And it's like,
have you been south?
you live in Chicago. What are you talking about? Or Los Angeles, let's say that. And so it's never as scary as you think it's going to be. People all over the world are generally pretty open and accepting, and they can kind of gauge, it's like a dog knows when it's interacting with a baby.
Yeah.
All right. Well, people from other countries know when they're interacting with someone who has no idea what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And they'll be gentle and they'll be nice. And most of the time, you're going to have, I think, positive experiences, especially in those moments when you really don't know what you're doing.
And when you're open to learn and to understand and to listen and to actually absorb rather than sort of bullshit and just presume you know better.
Yeah, and those end up being the best moments in travel when you don't have things planned out exactly, or especially Japan's a great place for this, Vietnam, where you just roam around, meet people, and just open yourself up to new experiences rather than having a checklist of things you need to get done that day. Japan is known for, other countries too, especially like India, maybe Pakistan. There's a good chance if it's just maybe you and a buddy in Pakistan, let's say, that someone's going to invite you in for tea, want to sit down with you, talk to you. I've been in Vietnam before where somebody invited me into their house while they were having dinner. I was just taking some pictures around some alleyways. They're like, yeah, come in. And we couldn't communicate whatsoever, but they gave me a beer or some tea and offered some food, some delicious homemade food that they just made. And that's an amazing memory that you don't get from a brochure or from a planned out group tour. It just had to happen randomly. And so be open to the experiences that can only happen by way of stumbling upon them. Look, I was terrified when I moved to Korea at 24. And back then, YouTube wasn't like it is now. Now there's like a guide to every country. Before I went to Borough Market today, I just looked up like 4 videos to get the layout. Everything is out there. Just go do it.
That's amazing.
Great advice.
Hugely inspirational. Just before we wrap this up, there's one question we ask everybody right at the end. And obviously, you travel the world and you eat a lot of food. But what is the one thing that you think everybody at home should try and cook once in their lifetime? One dish that they must have a go at actually cooking rather than just eating.
At least for Americans, I think every American should walk through their local Asian market. And then they'll find something to cook, trust me. But we have these huge supermarket chains all throughout the USA. But in every big city or even medium-sized city, there is going to be this small, super local Asian market. And if you go in there, you're not going to recognize most things. But some stuff will be like microwavable, or you can steam it, or you can throw it in a skillet. And just take half an hour to look around, take pictures of stuff that you don't know what it is, look it up later. But that is a great way. I mean, that's something I wish I did before going to Korea for the first time. Was I probably did already have this taste of Asia nearby me, but I just didn't think to go to my local Asian market and take a look at what they had. And so I think that's a great way to start opening your horizons. And there's other versions of this, whether it's in Indian market or whatever. But just getting a chance to start to know and understand a new culture, a new place, a new continent or cuisine, just by seeing what's on the shelf, I think that's can be super eye-opening. And worst case scenario, they're always going to have like a load of sauces there to try. Grab 3 things, get some like Korean gochujang, and some Korean soy sauce is way better than that hourglass crappy soy sauce we have in the USA. Get a few sauces, bring it home, try it out. What's the worst that could happen?
You don't like it. It's not the end of the world. It's
Exactly.
Really not. But what you will do is unlock huge new experiences and kind of experiment. I think that's a great.
What an answer.
It's a great show. Those supermarkets are like Aladdin's cave.
Yeah.
It's so full of so many treasures, and most of them you don't really understand yet.
Yeah, and a lot of them, it's not like it's like the greatest hits of Asia. You go there, it's everything from China, Korea, Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, usually like those countries, and there's a lot there, a lot of flavor.
Great answer.
Amazing.
Well,
Thank you. So that is amazing.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Absolutely brilliant. Really great to sit down and chat. And you can have a breather now because your London filming session is done.
It's a wrap.
Cheers.
Cheers to
that.